Forum, that's all we need.
Call the Wisconsin Rapids Waterworks and Lighting Commission meeting to order. If we could get approval for additions or corrections to the minutes of the regular commission meeting held on January 8th, 2019.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All in agreement?
Aye.
Okay, action items. Training request for the 2020 AWWA National Conference.
I'm looking to see if I can get the approval from the commission to attend the annual convention down in Orlando this year. Opportunity to talk to vendors and learn new stuff about things coming out in the industry and a lot of kind of fixes that we need to get done here, whatever, if something comes up. But also a good opportunity to talk with other people in the industry and see what they do and help us out here as well, bring it back.
I mean, it'd be good to see what you bring back, you know, new ideas, or maybe reiterating what we're doing, or confirming what we're doing, I should say.
Sure.
But I recommend approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in agreement?
Aye.
Thank you.
Just a question related to that as well. Should Dale's understudy be attending some of these conferences as well?
We can discuss that, yeah. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea for Adam to go. Yeah. I'll see.
Okay.
Okay, 3.2 trailer mount air compressor replacement.
This is something that Jason's not able to come here today because he's sick. The compressor we have now, you can see, is a 1993 model. It's showing signs of wear. It's pumping oil into the air system and stuff, so it's be a costly repair. So he's looking to replace it. You see the three items below, Lincoln Contractors out of Wausau for $22,165, United Rental for $21,285 from Wausau, and LF George, $21,641. His recommendation is to go with the one from United Rental for $21,285, which would take care of our needs here.
The budget, I think, right?
Yeah, this was a budgeted item in the 2020 capital budget. We did budget $25,000 for this item, so Jason did a pretty good job on getting some quality bids for this.
Are these all Sullair? So these are all comparative
Right.
quotes? I would move for approval.
I would second it.
I would question. You know, I think Sullair is probably one of the better compressors, probably the best compressor that you can get. But I remember they have an oil, it's called a KT oil, and it's like $90 a gallon that these compressors run on. And they don't all have it, but the efficiency of the compressor is quite a bit improved when it uses this oil. The trouble is it's really caustic. It'll take the hair off your arms and, you know, give you a rash. And I'm wondering if they're still using that type of oil, or if it's just a regular compressor oil that.
That's something I could Jason check into and see.
Yeah.
I assume with things nowadays that you kind of watch, so it's not something.
And I remember we had one, we bought it used, and usually we didn't buy used compressors, but we had this compressor for like 20 years, and it had that type of oil, and the thing worked grand for a lot of years. And so, like I said, I think a lot of them, but I was always kind of leery about that compressor oil that you had to use.
We'll check with Jason.
Yeah, see what you can find.
Email.
But my recollection is, though, it can be handled safely, and it more than pays for itself in terms of the energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you speaking about that?
The oil.
The oil, yeah. It's great stuff, but it's tough to handle.
Right.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all in agreement?
Aye.
All right, safety committee meeting, or minutes. Okay, a discussion on CPR. I take it you have training every so many years for CPR? for-
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years for everybody?
Every 2 years. Linemen, it is a requirement of their jobs. Everyone else is just honestly a very good thing to have.
Okay.
So since we're doing the training, we do open it up to everybody. And yeah, we have probably 97, 98% participation with the entire utility, so.
Good.
See, we have a couple of new employees. Is there an exam that goes with this safety orientation so that you're sure about the retention of what's taught?
The safety orientation that we do with new employees really covers, it kind of gives a general overview of the safety program. We do cover just about all of the topics that we would cover in our normal monthly safety training. We don't go into too much detail because we still are going to have the annual training, but it is more or less just an introduction into what kind of safety culture we have here at the utility, how we do things safety-wise, inspections and training. So there is no formal exam at the end of it. It's more of an open discussion to have with that employee, and then cover the topics that we need to.
But I would assume the filter plant person would be more than a general orientation because of the chemicals and so on that are.
There's certain aspects of that training that does address SDS's chemical safety, but it's not the on-the-job training that they'll be getting from the actual filter plant employees, at which point some of those safety topics will be also taken care of.
She'll be trained for 2 months before she's flying on her own upstairs. so.
There's a lot more detailed on-the-job training than there is just for the safety orientation.
Okay.
The risk of sounding stupid, what is dielectric training or testing on the bucket?
Test the insulation on the booms.
Okay, is that like for ground or whatever, so?
Yep. Annually, they have to be
Okay.
tested.
Make sure they're safe in the bucket.
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
Who's the contractor that comes in?
Alltech is doing it now.
He check all the trucks?
Just the insulated trucks.
All right.
And is bloodborne pathogen training, is that another yearly thing that has to come up into the?
Yeah, bloodborne pathogen is an annual requirement according to regulations. It's pretty simple training, don't touch blood.
Yeah.
But we do go into a little bit of detail as to what people should be doing, how to clean out blood, how to protect yourself from blood, and how to handle it. So that's all part of the first aid training this year.
Okay, good.
You didn't mention it in here, but I assume the new office employee gets safety orientation as well?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it's a little less. There's a little less, we would cover less topics because there's less hazards in the office, but yes, absolutely, there will be a safety orientation for her. And both of the new employees are already signed up for the CPR classes as well, so.
I know in the school district, every year, the teachers have to go through a checklist online, and just that they are knowledgeable about this. Is that a practice here, or?
Depending upon the class, yeah, there are certain things that we have to, according to regulations, train and instruct every year. Bloodborne pathogens is one of those.
Yeah.
So we always go make sure there's certain, depending upon the job that you're in and the hazards that come with that job, we have assessments that have gone through and determined people in the office. We need to make sure that they take bloodborne pathogens every year, emergency action plan, fire extinguisher training. But yeah, people in the office have a lot less hazards to worry about than the lineman or water crew or the filter plant, so.
I know the checklist is good because it puts the onus on the teacher to say they know about it, they, you know, and they
Absolutely.
sign, it's kind of like signing off
Yep.
in case there is a situation.
Well, the onus is on Sean to make sure we're
Yeah.
trained when we need to be
Absolutely.
trained on the requirements.
Yep, knowing all the regulations, knowing what we have to train, knowing what's required, knowing what's just nice to have. But yeah, there's quite a few things that we need to make sure, I need to make sure that I have everybody taught on every year.
ASHA gives you a list.
Pardon?
I say ASHA gives you a list.
Yeah. OSHA, OSHA, yeah, they keep me under their finger very tightly.
Anything else? If not, the line superintendent report?
How's progress on three-phase trimming? I see that's still a topic here. Are we pretty far along with that?
Yeah, they just moved on to a new circuit this week, so we're on the north rural now in Kelmer area, which is one of the bad areas. They've done the whole south rural already. The second crew has made a huge difference. Yeah, huge.
Anything else? Okay, water department operations.
I see we made the news with a water tower leak. It was in the paper. Somebody reported a water tower leak.
News to me, I don't know.
Did hear, the leak may have happened is sometimes we had some issues with our water tower height level sensor, and they may have overflow the tower, it comes out of the overflow, obviously.
That's what I figured it was, but, so the message never got here, huh?
I never heard nothing about it, no, other than that issue with the sensor, which we worked on repairing, so.
The local trombone picked it up.
No.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, customer service supervisor. Well, I got one other question. It looks, the elevations in the well, 15 foot, 10 inches, it looks like it's going down considerably from what it usually does.
Coming back down to a normal winter time.
Is that what happens in the winter?
Yeah, winter there's more regeneration to the ground, so your levels will drop down slightly, still
Oh, I see.
very good, yeah.
All right, the customer support supervisor's report.
Why are we hiring a new position? Is that a new position in the office there?
It is a new position. We took on the cross-connection inspection in the office, so one of our current employees is going to do that as well.
It was in the budget to add the additional employee. We were having some of Dale's crew and a contractor do our cross connections. We decided to bring them all in-house.
That was work that the city delegated to Waterworks.
Yeah. Oh. And now that we heard that the city's sending the well inspections our way, we'll definitely need that additional employee.
Next Tuesday. I'm in favor of it.
Be hard to fight that one too hard, I think, from your position. What's the story on if I read this correctly, a new website or a new website developer?
Yes, we chose somebody to create a new website for us that's more customer service friendly. It'll just be easier to have our customers go on there and have more detailed information than what they can have now.
That was also in the budget, but we haven't redone our website in, God, a long time. Well, we did it right when I got here, which was about 12 years ago. Right. So it's due for a facelift.
Yeah, so there's just, I mean, just the look and feel and accessibility and navigability. I think we're just looking at changing that and just kind of giving it a fresh look, like John
So
said.
primarily the customer interface part of it.
Yes, the ability to get stuff out to the customers and where they can find the information, so.
Is that, I saw on accounts payable, there was a payment, $6,000 to.
Yep, that was that
website
company that,
development.
they're gonna start in the end of March. They're gonna start that, so.
Any other questions, comments?
I remember a couple of months ago, you mentioned you went to a conference and you thought a good idea would be packets for new customers.
Mhm.
I don't know, you still think it's a good idea, or?
We are gonna do that as soon as we get everybody trained and going in their new roles. That will be started as well.
I thought it was a good idea too.
I still think it's a good idea.
And there's not as much activity now as in summer, so it's a good time if we start rolling this out in spring to summer, hopefully we'll catch most of the people that come into the community.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody finished with Lynn? Okay. I think we're pretty easy on that. You gotta come up with something honest.
Just trying to.
Okay, Director of Finance report?
You want to talk a little bit about the rate case?
Sure, it's still progressing. We had a couple smaller data requests come through in the last couple of weeks. In talking with both the rate designer and the one that does the revenue requirements, we're still hoping for a kind of like a summer implementation of the rates, depending on, questions or the things that do come up. That's still the target. We haven't gotten a lot back yet from them as far as, disallowable costs or things that they are gonna change or not change with our rates that we're potentially looking at doing. So at this point, it's still just in their hands, reviewing our data and asking for additional information.
When you talk about rate design, is there something there that will impact us?
The rate design would just be, they're gonna look at the cost of service to serve each customer class and then build the rates based on what those costs are. And if those costs have changed since our last rate case, then the design of the rates may change. One of the things we also want to discuss with them is potentially changing our on-peak, off-peak hours. It's a conversation we want to have with the PSC to see if they have an appetite for that. And we haven't gotten to that point, but those would be the big pieces. It's just what cost they allocate to each customer class. It's probably the big piece for the rate design.
I think it's good that you and Sean spoke to Sunrise Rotary. Can you share a response that they had?
It was pretty well received. There's still quite a few, small business owners within Sunrise Rotary that Sean was able to talk to, and some of the just residential customers that are there that he, shared some time of use rates with them. Talked a lot about focus on energy and incentives there that are available to both residential and commercial customers. So pretty well received.
That's good.
Yeah, it was really great.
Anything new on the FEMA funding?
The FEMA's still through the review phase. I did talk to our contact last week, and there's several review steps, and at that point it was in the insurance review steps. They were just going through to see what we got for insurance versus what they're paying for. So it got through the initial review with no more questions asked, so they're pretty happy with the documentation that was there. So that's also progressing pretty well.
Good. What's happening with our interest on investments?
Interest is decreasing. We had some agency funds that got called in the last couple of months. Just because the rates were higher, they were locked in for either a year or 18 months until they got called. So some of the newer interest, or some of the newer CDs we're buying, the rates are going down. 3-year terms are sitting right around 1.9 to 2% right now, so trying to keep a healthy balance between kind of what's liquid, that's a lower rate, and then not locking ourselves into that higher rate. Like Jen mentioned, we'll probably do an investment portfolio review in the next month or two, and just kind of show everything that we've got right now and talk a little more about where we're heading, what strategy is.
So you're saying some of the callable bonds were called, and
Yes.
that's why the interest rate dropped?
That's why our overall interest is going down. Because the stuff we're replacing it with now is, what's on the market is just lower.
Couldn't believe mortgage is less than 3%.
Crazy.
I had an 11%.
I thought about that before I went ahead, John. I remember like 7.5 to 8 was pretty standard.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Any other questions that you have? If not, the Information Systems Administrator? I got all kinds of questions. Your first paragraph, Lynn has been working with NISC and the new meter configurations for the data management system. I think it's going to automatically, it's not going to be like you read a number, print a number. This is just going to go automatically into.
Yeah, it's actually working right now. They're just rearranging some things. When we first started using the system and we weren't too familiar with it, we created some extra meter configurations to try to handle certain situations. Well, they're going through and they're kind of cleaning all that old stuff up, and they're creating new meter configurations. All a meter configuration does is it takes the data from the meter and then it tells the billing system, this piece of information is for here, this piece is for here, this piece is for here. So that's they're just cleaning all that up and kind of making it so that we don't have so many different ones out there.
I see. And the next one, the NISC multi-speak communication between Honeywell and NISC.
Yep, so multi-speak is kind of the language that the two systems have in common. So that's what they use to talk to each other. We've gotten it to work with NISC's iView asking Ulster's Connexo to go out and do a meter reading for it,
Mhm.
and then bring the information back. We did that one. So now the next one is to tell it, okay, we'd like to disconnect this meter, please go remote disconnect it, and then let me know when you're done with that.
Okay, so we can remote disconnect from here
Yes. We currently have
On
that
some
capability.
percentage of our
on
meters
some
Right.
percentage.
Right.
So all the meters have not been changed
to remote disconnect.
to the remote disconnect.
When meters fail, we're replacing them with a remote disconnect.
And what percentage do we have replaced with remote disconnect?
I think we were at a couple thousand out of 14,000.
I would say probably about 20%, I would guess.
Okay. Okay, next one, the outage management system.
Yes.
And 60 seconds is, you're trying to increase the time frame to 60 seconds.
Yeah, what we believe it's set at now is 1 second per
Okay.
blink. And I haven't verified, it's either 1 or 5 seconds, but it's not long enough. So basically what we want the system to do is we want the meter to say, okay, I'm out. And then the system should know, okay, wait, so much time before you actually report that outage to see if the meter comes back. So we want to extend that to 60 seconds because by then the reclosers went through all of its actions and it has restored power if it can. If it can't, then it's an outage. Otherwise, we just get a bunch of single meters that come into outage management that have only been out for 5-10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Because they went out, branch fell on the line, recloser shut the circuit off, and then the recloser tried to turn it back on, branch was clear, so it turned the circuit back on, and the meters got power again.
Has that been affecting our reliability numbers?
No, because
It's
we.
been affecting our outage reporting, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think initially when we set the system up, somehow we didn't set it for a long enough grace period between the outage notified.
The reliability numbers are totally differently calculated out. The linemen actually fill out a form for me on every outage, and then that goes to my meter person, and he tells me how many meters are there, and then that's on a report. So this is the computerized system that we're trying to refine, and maybe we can use someday, but it's never worked right because of this problem.
Yeah. Because of this issue, the accuracy has not been there.
Well, that was my question.
Yeah.
Because we've had very good reliability numbers, and it would seem like if you had this type of thing happening, it would have actually understated our reliability.
Correct.
It's came readily apparent during the storm that the OMS wasn't working like it should. So since then, when we've had spare time and Matt has had time, we're trying to refine that to get it to work right. If we can't work with NIC to get it to work right, we're gonna have to find another product. So that's what we're trying to figure out now.
Yeah, because ideally, you'd be able to load that into your reliability numbers, right?
Right.
Yeah, it prints out a report now, it just has information that is inaccurate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that ties into the 1,800 errors as well, because it's actually not reporting all of the meters that are out on that circuit. It's only reporting maybe 90% of those meters, because the other ones have errors on them. So it doesn't know they're there.
Okay, so it's going both ways.
Yeah, we're getting it from both ends on that one.
Thank you.
And we had a power outage in part of the city on a Saturday morning. I saw it was in Josh's report, and the telephones didn't work. And it's always bad when I get a phone call. I had to call Todd, and Todd told me what was going on. He heard a crew was out.
That was a totally different situation. Every time we have an issue with the phones, it seems to be something different. This time, in Solaris, they're saying, because Green Bay is our call center, and they would have been the ones to get the overflow calls. So once our system gets bogged down with phone calls, Solaris has a procedure in place to where it automatically kicks the call out to our call center. Well, at the same time the outage happened, within 10 minutes of the outage happening, somebody somewhere between here and Green Bay had cut one of the fiber lines. It was a heck of a coincidence.
So the calls couldn't get to the call center.
Right, and so then they were just going into no service available.
I know that's just when people get upset when they can't get a hold of you.
I don't blame
You
them.
know, they say, well, no one knows of our problem, but at least I have a magic number I can get the information. I can call Todd. Okay, anything else? No, we have the conservation manager, I believe, report.
Sounds like he's getting right down to the small players here when you're talking about Buck Rub Tavern and so on, so it's good. Expanding our service, folks should be really happy with the service he provides. Did your Rotary presentation generate any business for him?
I think the Chamber of Commerce was one that came out of there, and I think there was one other one that we talked to there that had a small business.
And it's great to see that this theater program is ongoing.
Should be a good one this year.
I think I'd like to ask Sean next month to talk a little bit more about the recycling coupon books.
I always gotten that stuff to the city, you did mention that to me.
So that the viewers can hear about it too, so they know.
Yeah, he's on vacation.
I know, but maybe next month.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, Director of Engineering, Electric Operations? The annual distribution transformer. Is that something we usually bring up in the commission meeting and vote on?
Yeah, we do, because of all of the construction in the country, deliveries are way out further than typically are. And because we also had the early January meeting, Jim and I made the decision that it would be better to go ahead and do the order and then talk about it at the commission meeting than wait for the February meeting. Otherwise, when it came to spring, Josh's crew wouldn't have any transformers to put in. So what was unique in this year was when we put out the bid, we always try to get the best pricing based on this is a whole package. And what happened this year was the one that was the low bid actually couldn't meet the spec on the 3-phase pad mount units. And so I talked with them, and then I talked with Resco, who's the company we typically buy from, if they would be willing to allow us to split the order and give Resco the transformers that border states couldn't make our spec on, and would they keep the pricing. And both companies agreed. They were just happy to get the business that and okay with keeping the prices that they, honoring the prices of the quote. So by doing that, that actually saved us an additional $30,000 because the 3-phase pad mount transformers that only Resco could make actually were cheaper than the ones border states were bidding as that wouldn't meet the spec. So
Did you change the specification or something?
no, the part of the spec that Resco actually has gotten the order for probably 6 years in a row. And one of the things that was on there is they have hinges on the incoming line section that open on the top and the sides. The guys have really liked that feature because it makes pulling the cables easier. So we added it to the spec last year as a requirement, so that's why all at once it's a new thing. But they did not want to change their manufacturing process, which in my opinion was a bad decision because all it's doing is adding some hinges on a metal door that is screwed down, but they didn't want to go with that, or they didn't want to honor that spec, so I think they will in the future.
It's a good move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything was in budget.
In budget for, the max. So we are like 50,000 over the transformer line item, but we're gonna take funds out of a different line item so that we're staying in budget. Because we, again, had a internal meeting where this is the bare minimum transformers we feel we have to complete our construction schedule for this year. So better to cut somewhere else than on this line item.
I guess one more question along that line. Yep. Was the overall transformer budget above what you expected then?
Yeah, I think what really happened was we kept the number that we had the previous year, but we actually used so many transformers during the storm that we needed more to replenish our supplies this year. So that was the unexpected problem that we faced.
We won't be over budget unless something else happens. We eliminated a $100,000 project from the budget, so.
So you're covered.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, the general manager report.
It's nice that we hired McKenna, who was also received the scholarship.
Yeah, it was very nice. And I think that was one, from what Roxanne tells me, because it was before my time, but that's the original concept that the commission had when they set up that program. To hopefully help feed employees here and to other utilities.
That's great. Can you tell a little bit about that leadership workshop, or?
Yeah, the MEW board had, this spring had a facilitator come in and do a kind of a leadership workshop with the board to try to assess what type of skills and principles that they would teach in this leadership workshop. So this is a result of that. And I think they're planning on an April, I think, launch of this program, and it'll be in pieces to try to help prepare new people in the industry to become leaders in public power. So we'll probably take a look at our team and determine who we might want to try to stick in those training sessions to develop them along.
It's a good idea.
So, yeah, I think it was.
So it's all, the utilities are gonna select who they're gonna send to this program, or get
Correct.
involved in the program.
Any word on Neil Ash replacement?
Nope. I mean, we had a glue meeting February 5th here in the office, and at this point, they still have not hired another search consultant or haven't moved at all. I mean, I think when they did not fill the position, he committed to stay for as long as they filled it. So I expect it to start moving fairly shortly, but.
Any other comments? The only other thing is the MUW, the mutual aid compensation. Is there anything really drastically different?
Not too much. I think there was a change in the staging because there was some disagreements on how our crews were getting paid travel time to get to wherever they were responding to the emergency. They changed that to include all that wait time, because sometimes they'd have us drive partway down and then they'd say wait till they get the full assessment of the storm, and our guys weren't getting paid during that time, or some utilities weren't. So it was made clear to whoever asks our help, I mean, if they take them out of the service territory, they're paying for them. And then the other major change was, if our guys respond to a storm in Florida or on the East Coast now, they'll be paid the wage of the utilities working the storm, whoever called us to help, and not our wage. Because I guess there was some discrepancy or disagreements along those lines as well. And those were the only two changes that were made.
So evidently, the hard-hit areas like on the coast would probably be paying more than what our guys are getting.
Yeah, and who they're responding to, an investor owned utility might typically pay their linemen more than what we're paying them as well.
Okay.
So it just keeps everybody on an equal playing field, whoever's responding to the storm.
Thanks. Accounts payable review? Page 3, J&R Underground boring from Metelco feed. Is that our cost, or is that Metelco's cost eventually?
How that works is that we're responsible for the overhead line cost from the sub to the Metelco plant. However, we decided to go underground instead, so we're making up that difference. Did I say that right? I don't know if I did. Okay, so yeah.
In the end, you did.
Yeah, okay. So it's more costly to go underground, but we chose that because of the reliability factor, and so we got to make up that difference.
Okay.
they have made contributions to the construction. And they'll get part of that money back based upon what their first year of electric demands are and what have you. So that's all PSC related stuff.
Then I saw the other big one was the foundation for the coin, 180,000. Is that fencing and pad or?
No, that's a good story. So that was the second phase of the project. That was pouring the transformer pad, and that was putting in the underground trench that goes from the pad to the building, and then all the underground conduits that connect the breaker pad, the transformer pad, and the medium voltage breaker pads to the trench. But the original contractor on site, we asked them to submit a bid, which came in way too high in my opinion. I said that number just does not seem correct. They said, no, it's a good number. I brought in a different contractor. As soon as the other contractor walked on site, they cut the number by 120,000. The new contractor still bid it and came in lower than that number, so we ended up paying like 140,000 less than what we would have paid if we would have stayed with them. But all that covered though was those particular items. But it's helpful. Josh has got a lot of expertise in cement work, so the numbers are good numbers from a cement material cost, but it just was crazy how people would probably just pay that out if they didn't know that number didn't seem right.
Well, I always thought that cities and utilities have a target on their back for that kind of thing.
Yeah,
You know,
I think
and then when we
especially.
did when I was at the sewage plant, it seemed pretty outlandish, some of the things that they, of course, change orders, that's their big one. The
Yeah.
best one was, they built this compressor building, they forgot to put the lentils in, and they wanted to come back later for, I don't know, $12,000 to put lentils. I said, doesn't that come with the building? It's like a house without windows.
There'll be a lot happening at Coin this week. That transformer gets delivered, so.
Oh.
We're working on that.
Well, it still seems like quite a lofty amount for
It was,
concrete work.
it seemed like a lot of money in my opinion, but yeah.
How big
It's
is
a pretty
it?
big pad.
It's a pretty big pad. I would say it's probably 10 feet by 10 feet, but you've got a containment area and a center area to support the weight. So I'm gonna get some good pictures of it because transformer, actually they called it right before the meeting. It was supposed to arrive tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Should be here in about 20 minutes. So I'll be heading out there after the meeting. I guess they wanted to beat the weather that's coming in this afternoon. So.
Any other questions?
Try to leave, as I had mentioned earlier, try to leave out some heavy lifting to do on the normal stuff we do at least on an annual basis. So try to leave the morning before the next commission meeting open unless next week is no good. But later, the last week in February, when I get back from DC, we can either shoot for the Thursday or Friday of that week, or we can push it to before the commission meeting, whatever works best for everybody.
And what do we need to meet on?
Reliability statistics, our metrics that we set every year to see what our status was, our EPP financial and operating ratios, and where we're at investment-wise.
That Thursday, the 27th is wide open for me.
Okay.
Friday is booked.
Okay. We might shoot for just, because that'll be my first day back in the office after being gone and for 3 days. Probably shoot for before the commission meeting, and that'll give Jeff and Todd more time to prepare as well.
All right, I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. All in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.